Hello and welcome to the making of Playing with Songs, episode number 5. So after last week of kind of taking it easy and being a little bit better to myself, I thought, well, that's good. That's been a nice experiment as well. But I did like the increased productivity that I found using these Pomodoros, which is simply put a 25-minute focus chunk with a 5-minute break and then another 25 minutes, and you maybe do 4 of these and then maybe have a longer break of half an hour and then carry on. I'd been doing about 4 of these and then an hour's like lunch break and then doing another 4, but you could probably fit in about 12 of these 25-minute chunks of work. And the reason they're useful is because you can practice being very focused for that period of time, and then you can have 5 minutes away and sort of refuel, and so you don't become overloaded, and just gives you a bit more stamina, allows you to get more done. So since going through that, I decided to have that break and be a bit better to myself and then come back to the Pomodoros. And what I found out is the guy who came up with this, whose name I can't currently remember, but I'm going to put a link to his guide of how to use this Pomodoro method in the show notes, explained a few more details that made the whole method a bit more interesting and a bit more useful, which was to write down, for example, the Pomodoros you're doing and where they're going to work and what you're going to do, and get to a point like over time where you can sort of estimate how long you think something might take and then see how long it actually takes, and then eventually get a really good judge of yourself, so you can say, oh, I think it's going to take this long, but it actually took this long, and then you can keep sort of referencing back at different times to make yourself more and more productive. And I think the next step you could apply to that, because of all the learning how to learn things that I've learned from Jim Quick's book Limitless, is to think, oh, this took X number of Pomodoros, I wonder if I can make it not just maybe necessarily estimate more Pomodoros to do the work, but to perhaps find other approaches to learn the stuff faster and produce results a bit faster. But before all that, there was another approach I took to Pomodoros, different to the last time, that suddenly made it easier. Now, in this guide, it says, oh, you should use a Pomodoro timer, like in the shape of a tomato or shape of anything, just an oven timer that's clockwork. I didn't know that at the time. When I was doing it originally, I was using a timer just on my phone and setting it for 25 minutes and then setting a 5-minute break, which was fine. But to be honest, that was kind of stressing me out, keep checking it and looking at the countdown timer. It says in the guide, oh, you should always see it visible, see the time counting down. Personally, that stressed me out quite a bit. I found an app, only costs £1.99 on the App Store, I think it's on Android as well, called Focus Keeper, I think it's what it's called. And that will automatically, it will just ding at the start, and you start it, and it gets to the end of 25 minutes, and it dings, and then you have your 5-minute break, and it dings again. And I preferred that, because personally, I find looking at a timer that's ticking down just stresses me out. But I can see the purpose of it. I think the point was, with the guide, was to say, oh, you can see that time and then not just use the 25 minutes for focus time, but say focus, and then for the last 5 minutes of that Pomodoro, of that focus time, to then summarise what you've done. And what I had been doing when I first found the app was using part of that 5-minute break to sort of summarise what I've done. So I've kind of been following it and not following it. It's a progress, practice makes progress, really. One of the other things they brought up in the Pomodoro guide, which I thought was interesting and kind of ties in the approach that I had the other week, which was just really being easy on myself, was it said that when these thoughts pump into your head, like these internal distractions where you think, oh, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that, to write them down, and then you add them to this additional list. So you'll have your main list of what you're doing and how many little chunks of 25 minutes you think it's going to take. And then if other things pop into your head, you can write them down on an extra list. I think they called it like extra or emergency or whatever, or urgent, whatever it is. But the point is you've got that written down, so then it takes it away from what you're currently focusing on, allows you to keep focusing on what you're focusing on. And I actually had accidentally done that already before I found the guide. So now I've got more of a formal way to make it work. So instead of it being a perfect little list, mine is just random things. And then I wrote down in my notepad And I've gone back through and marked with a highlighter pen that I hadn't used as much. I hadn't used the pink one yet. That was the only colour I had left, so I've gone back over and marked things that I may need to look at again with the pink marker. So the plan would be then to have these Pomodoros and chunks set by in your daytime to say, oh, okay, now I can look at all these things and try and bunch together, you know, what tasks can I accomplish in those 25 minutes. And if you've got something that's going to take 10 minutes, something that's going to take another 10 minutes, then you can put them together. So that's kind of where I've got to with the whole Pomodoro section, but it has been useful. I was able to use it to get through every one of the songs I need to learn for this contract that I'm doing this summer, which has been a really big undertaking of learning, simply because it's playing songs on the guitar and I don't know a huge amount about all of ins and outs of guitar techniques. So rather than just learning lyrics and harmonies and that, it's been learning how to play the guitar as well. But one thing I would say is, even if I'm not yet using these Pomodoros in the perfect way that the creator of them said to, I'm already achieving a huge benefit. So I would recommend them to anyone and everybody, anything you're trying to get done. You can get free Pomodoro apps as well, but the one I like was called Focus Keeper because it was really basic. I've turned the ticking off because that distracts me, but maybe some people like it. So you just get ding, start working, I'm working, ding, or stop working, put my head out the window, lie down, take a few deep breaths and then carry on. And that does the job. It does the job very much, and I would say it's lovely and jubbly. Lovely jubbly, in fact. So you might be wondering, did I get any closer to working on playing with songs, to working on what would be episode 3 of Playing with Songs Produced, which would be on a song called Stay? Well, yes, I kind of finally have. Because what I found was that yes, it's good to put things into little chunks to work on them, but it wasn't really quite working, and I was thinking, oh, can I notate everything? And then I think the thing is, if you slow down things too much or you put the chunks too small, you lose the overall meaning. Because one of the things that I learnt from some of the speed reading techniques that you can learn is I found that I'm still not great at speed reading, but I get more of the context in, even though I miss a lot of the points. But I found that when you read faster, you pick up a lot more of the overarching story or the context of the points that are being made, which is nice. And I think it's the same thing when you listen to a whole song as opposed to when you just listen to one little chunk of it. So with that in mind, when I was going for a walk the other day, I finally had that kind of revelation, and I thought, you know, what's going on? How can I make this simpler? How can I just think of one thing? Can I just think of one emotional thing that's going back and forth? And I thought, what was the song about? Why did we write it? Eventually, it came to me. This song, Stay, is relatively straightforward in the fact that it was simply me and my friend, and I didn't want my friend to leave, but unfortunately she had to, and it's just me saying stay, and she's saying goodbye, and I'm saying reasons to stay, and she's saying, oh, I'm sorry, I have to go. And really that's all it is. And the music does tie in with that, because I do a verse and try and do it in a reggae style, which is really a way of me saying, hey, like this new style, come on now, you've really got to stay. So then I made a different style for her verse, which was a jazzy one, saying, you know, your reggae's great, but this is a bit jazzy, and I'm sorry, I do still have to go. And that's kind of just a trading back and forth, like a call and a response, which is something that happens all the time in music, you know, like Freddie Mercury does, doesn't he, in that famous, I think it was the Live Aid concert back in 85, was it, where he goes "Ba-ba-doo-ba-doo-doo," and then the audience join in with him. Was it "Well-doo-ba-doo"? I don't know what he sings, but that's such an integral part of music, and that is the main thing of what's happening in that song. I just not really noticed that before. And I thought to really go to town with that theme, what we can say is, you know, I'm saying please stay and I'm playing guitar. She's saying, no, I'm sorry, I have to go. She plays piano. So I thought, well, what about for the bits when she's singing, she can add in little piano twiddlies to sort of emphasise that she wants to go. And I've messaged my friend and said, you know, do you want to do that? And she's like, oh, I don't think I'm very good at piano. So I'm going to work out these bits on piano. I'm not very good at piano either, but I know enough to be able to sit down and pick things out note by note by note and slowly layer them up and then slowly learn like actually how to play what I've composed, which is the approach that I did with the first 2 episodes of Playing with Songs Produced. I think that's the thing that's fun about it, and that's the element that I want to put forward in episode 3 is in episodes 1 and 2, when you see them, you don't get to see the fact that I'm struggling. It just looks like I've gone, here you go, there's this bit and here's this bit, when in reality I've spent a long time coming up with something which is beyond the limits of what I can play, and then I've spent the time learning how to actually play that piece in time. So obviously the difference this time in the Playing with Songs Produced show is that I'll go through each chunk and say, this is what I've figured out, this is what I'm doing, this is how I've learned how to play this in time, this is how I'm going to remember how to do it, and lock it in and link it in my memory with these learning techniques to remember what we've done, so we can take it forward into other songs, and hopefully you can pick out some techniques and think, oh yeah, that's a different approach, maybe I could try that. So this is the good news, what we've come up with. And the other sort of conundrum that's finally sort of revealed itself is, I talked, I think, the other episode about, you could play ahead of the beat, or behind the beat, or on the beat, but you really need a beat, don't you? And I think the thing with playing on your own is, where's the beat? You're just this one person playing on your own. So it made me think, well, how can I have the beat through the song, even though I'm playing each of these instruments on my own? And the answer is to create the drums first, isn't it? And play to the drums. So I've decided the best way to do this is going to be to go through the whole song and play the drums, and really think about how the drums are, and think about how they're going to fit into the other instruments, roughly speaking. And then really just let the drums dictate the song, because I just think, to me, that makes the most logical sense, because my timing on the guitar isn't incredible. To play something really well in time, I have to practice quite a bit, listening to the metronome very closely. So if I can almost create for myself a really good guide track, a really good groove track, as it were, to know where things are. And I've tried a lot of these drum presets that are built into Logic and GarageBand, but they never really come up with the drums that are in my mind. So I may even go through and kind of beatbox it and go, and then go back and try and put in the actual drums I want there. So that'd be the plan. And then sort of layer things up and sort of go in order, I would say. Bring the drums in, bring some of the acoustic guitar in, the bass, and sort of build things. I want to start things quite simple and then have little twiddlies. I just like the idea of the instruments working not in unison with each other, in harmony with each other, as it were. So you can say, if we've got one verse where we trade lines back and forth, I say, can you think of a verse? Maybe I'll come up with one first, Sophie. And then Sophie says, I struggle with words, but I like singing with you, Robbie. So if we can put in little twiddlies there on the guitar while I'm singing to sort of reinforce what I'm singing, whether that's following the melody of the notes that I'm singing, and the same with Sophie, or even just a little bit at the end. I like singing with you, Robbie. Just little things like that to say, I'm here playing the piano with you, and I'm fitting into the gaps, and I'm here too. I'm not just singing, I'm expressing through the guitar and the twiddlies. So I know it sounds a bit more abstract, but I think this is going to be the way to go, because the other option was beginning to become a little bit too technical. That's the thing with music. I think there's a really fine line. It's got to be technical, it's got to be perfect, but it's also kind of got to come from a point of emotionality and storytelling, and they really have to kind of work together. I think if you need to have them both in place. So that's the new approach. I don't know if I've explained that well, which is really that I've kind of got the call and response in my head. I'm going to limit it to drums, bass, electric guitar and piano only. I was thinking it would be nice to compose this in such a way where I can play it in one take on acoustic guitar. So if I deliberately keep the acoustic guitar simple, put the twiddlies on the electric guitar as an extra thing, and then the piano, keep the piano simple and just add in little twiddlies. So we've got a few options there. We could have a completely acoustic guitar, and I put the guitar on while I'm playing acoustic and add little twiddlies into the acoustic part. But if I do that, that's going to be more difficult to play and I might lose the rhythm. And we could do the same on the piano. So there are options, but I think I like the idea of it staying electric. So what we could say is we've got drums, bass, acoustic guitar, electric guitar and piano, and then if we wanted to create a stripped back version, we'd put some of the electric guitar melody twiddly bits into the acoustic guitar bit, and perhaps the piano would already be more of an additive bit rather than constant part through the song anyway. And then you can have the more acoustic version of the song as an option as well. So this is our plan going forward with what will be episode 3 of Playing with Songs Produced, which will be about the song called Stay, which I wrote with my friend Sophie. Now, it might seem like I've got quite a lot done, but it's actually been rather a tricky week. It's kind of ironic in a way. I finally got round to going to a dentist to finally get my teeth fine, which it turns out they weren't too bad after all, but my gums are a bit sore, and I thought, right, now I'm cleaning them properly. I've done all this research. But then ironically, right at that time, I appeared to have developed candida or thrush, which apparently happens when your immune system gets a bit low, which is a shame because I thought I was eating quite well, but maybe not. So I think it's kind of a blessing in disguise because it's led me to do further research to find out about how big of an impact healthy bacteria has in your mouth and in your gut. I've started taking some probiotics, and then in time I'm going to do further research in order to transition to a diet that promotes and creates more probiotics and more good bacteria in the gut. And I also found out something recently on a rerun of that show, BBC show, The Truth About. They did a show, I think, back in 2017 called The Truth About Sleep, which was nice to watch because it was pre-COVID and all these people walking around in masks, interviewers standing only a couple of feet away. Oh, happy days, eh? And one of the things they talked about in that, and there wasn't a proper detailed study for it, I don't know if there's been one done since, but the presenter, who couldn't sleep, he was always waking up in the middle of the night, took a prebiotic, which is these fibres that the bacteria sort of grab a hold of, and then they turn that fibre into something else that your body needs. And I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but the upshot of it is you end up sleeping a lot more. He ended up sleeping 10% more and felt a lot better. And I found some tablets today that appear to have the probiotics, which is the bacteria, and the prebiotics, which is the fibre they need. But the other thing that was interesting to learn is there's all these different probiotic boxes, and you think, well, they're all the same. One says 7-day, one says extra strength. And you read the back, and they've all got completely different bacteria in them. So this is going to be something that's going to involve more research and study. Maybe if I can find a book on this and find out, not just the names of these bacteria, but like what they do, what foods you find them in, how much you need of each one. Because the reason I want to go down this road is because if you've got the right kind of bacteria in your tummy, right, you sleep more, sleep better. And if you sleep better, then you're then less hungry in the daytime. Because if you've not had enough sleep, but you can't really think straight, as you know, but you also get really, really hungry for really simple carbs, and biscuits and really high sugar things. But if you're sleeping better, then you don't have those cravings, which means if you can fix your sleep, you're also likely to lose weight as well. The other benefit with these having good bacteria is they seem to suggest that allows the body to extract more nutrients from the food and also less of a calorie content, as it were. So the food that you eat sort of results in less calories to the body, in a good way, I mean, as in you won't put on as much weight from eating the same amount of food. So it seems to suggest that once you get this bacteria really perfect, then you've got kind of this buffer there where you can go off the rails a bit and it won't make any difference. And I think that's kind of why what tends to happen, I believe, is you put on so much weight and then your body does its best to sort of just keep there, because that's where things are at now. And that's probably potentially because there's now some imbalance in the gut microbiome that's making it now more difficult to lose the weight, because, a diet for someone who's got better bacteria isn't going to work as well because your bacteria is compromised. So this is the goal going forward, and to me this sounds a little bit more appealing than, I don't know, a gym. I can't stand the idea of going to the gym or the idea of depriving myself from all this stuff. So if instead I can say, this is going to do this and this is going to do that. That sounds a bit more fun. So in the meantime, in the short term, I've put loads of these probiotics and I'm going to have loads of them and hopefully that'll help. And in the long term, transition over to foods that help promote good gut bacteria, because I think that is the answer. Right, so one more thing before we wrap up this episode, which is because I got through all of the tracks that I need to learn for this contract this summer, I then wanted to think, I need to finish learning these songs. And I thought, well, how can I really finish learning them? So I tried to apply some exponential thinking, which is basically whereby you keep thinking, right, I'll do this, and then what, and then what, and then what, and then what. So I basically did that. I'll just find my notes on this. And so I used my little Pomodoro chart, and I thought, well, I don't ever do it. So let's say I've got 8 Pomodoros for the day, and I thought, well, if I give each song, 4 sets of 25 minutes each, maybe that should be enough. So like in the morning, 1, 2, 3, 4 songs. In the afternoon, 1, 2, 3, 4 songs. And then the next day, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the next day after that, move to 5, 6, 7, 8 and go on like that. And I thought, yeah, that could work. But then I thought, well, and then what? And what I realised was, yeah, I could do all of that, but then you could get to the end and still have loads of songs that you really can't play at all. And that's because not all songs are equal. Some are more difficult than others, and some will be more difficult to me than they will be to other people. So I thought, well, that's no good, is it? So I went through every song and gave them a mark out of 3. And I've come up with this little system for myself. I thought, well, if I give it a 1, that means I know a bit of the song, maybe a verse or a chorus or a couple of chords, just like something, anything. And if I give it a 2, it means I know most of the song, or like, chunks of the song, or little bits, maybe up to half the song, but not necessarily in the right order. And if I give it a 3, it means I know all the song pretty much in the right order. And if I was playing along with the track, I could kind of get through most of it or miss bits out. And then number 4 would be the final step to say that I can, finally do it confidently, maybe practice playing the guitar blindfolded so I'm not constantly staring down all the time. And then can begin to play it with some kind of degree of confidence and really owning the song and being sure of it. So I went through these songs, 33 songs, and gave them a mark out of 3, and I was quite surprised to learn that actually only 7 out of these 33 songs can I really give a mark of 3. And probably about 7 or 8 of them are like on a 0 or a 0.5 or maybe a 1. So I've got a lot of work to do, but that has been useful because I put it into a little table, put the table into order of numbers, so now I know which ones I'm going to do first. So because 8 Pomodoros is only 4 hours, because that's 25-minute focus, 5-minute break, 25-minute focus, 5-minute break, and that brings you up to 4, and then you'd have a longer break. So I say 4 hours. It's 5 hours for me because I do the 2 hours, which gets me 4 Pomodoros, 1 hour break for my lunch, and then I do 2 hours to get me another 4 Pomodoros. Now, it's not out of the realm of possibility to fit in another It's not out the realm of possibility to fit in another 4 Pomodoros. And I didn't want to overpressure myself, and I want to leave these kind of buffer spaces, so if things take longer. So what I thought I'd do, as the and then what kind of answer, is say you get through the day, you've done songs 1, 2, 3, 4, then you've had lunch, then you've done them again 1, 2, 3, 4. Then on what would be Pomodoro number 9, after dinner, is in that 25-minute chunk, you can play each song 1, 2, 3, 4 from memory, only from memory, and give them a new mark out of 3. So what we can say is, if the song is at, 2.5 or 3, if it's already at 3, then fine, don't worry about it. But if it's at 1, then it definitely needs more work. If it's 2, it needs more work. And then those songs are then going to be added on to the rest of that day, I would say. So that day, if there was, say, one song that was only a 1, maybe you could do a couple more sessions and say the others were a 3, so you can ignore those. And the one was a 1, we can give it another couple of sessions. And then we go through the next day, and say the next day we then check the songs again, and now they're all at a 3, so we can forget about it. But what we can do is we've got these 4 extra chunks of study after dinner in the evening. So for songs that haven't made it up to 3 after 4 Pomodoros, we can put extra time into them. So maybe we can say, after we've had 2 Pomodoros on a song, it needs to be at a 2. If it's not at a 2 after 2 Pomodoros, then we do another one. And then the next day, if we've had 4 Pomodoros, and it's not at 3, we need to do another one. And then I kept thinking, oh, I must do 2 sessions of the song in one day, I must do that, must do that. But you see, we create memories, long-term memories, when we sleep. I still only really like the idea of doing like 4 little chunks on each song. But if what I do instead is, say, on day 1, because I've got other bits and bobs I need to do, on the first 4 Pomodoros, we get other bits done. On the next 4 Pomodoros, we do songs 1 to 4. So we've only done 1 chunk, and then do a revision on Pomodoro chunk 9 and say where they're at and add any extras. Now, the reason I think this would be better is because then we're getting 1 set of study of the first 4 songs on day 1. Day 2, we're getting 2 25-minute chunks on these 4 songs. And day 3, we're getting another 1 study chunk on these 4 songs. And then we start the next 4 songs. So what that means is that you're working on these 4 songs spread out over 3 days. So the more days it can be spread out over, the better, because the more sleeps you get in there to create the memories. So this is the process I've come up with. I'm not saying it's perfect by any means, but it's progress. And really every step we take is progress to the next step. And everything's kind of a prototype. And I don't know if I may have mentioned this already in a previous episode, but really when we get to what will be episode 3 of Playing with Songs Produced, which will be the song Stay, written by me and my friend Sophie, that will again be a prototype for Playing with Songs Produced for episode 4. And then episode 4 will be a prototype for episode 5. Episode 5 will be a prototype for episode 6. So nothing's set in stone, and maybe it will be eventually, but I find personally, when I begin to think like that, when I begin to think, oh, it's got to be perfect, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, then that's when it sort of falls apart. All the while I can think, how can I make this better? Why must I make this better? And then what? And then what? And then what happens next? All the while I can think like that, then it's very motivating, which is very important. Without the motivation, obviously I wouldn't be speaking to you right now or be doing any of this. So it's a very important factor. I think it's something I would also recommend to everyone is whatever it is you're doing, if you can, just keep asking, and then what, and then what, and then what, and then what, and try not to think of things as fixed, because life isn't fixed, and unfortunately it never will be. But the more you learn, the more you can learn, the more adaptable you can be, and the more kind of sense of control you can get back, I suppose, and the less surprises there are, the more you have an idea of just everything in life, I would say. So, keep reading and keep learning. Right, so that brings us to the end of my new approach, which I wanted to share with you, which I am now applying to the songs I need to learn for the contract that I have coming up in the summer, depending on the COVID situation and depending on visas for working in a European country. I have a feeling this episode may be a little bit longer. It might even go over the 25-minute mark, so I do apologise for that, as I did want to keep things nice and succinct, but this is partially because I was rather poorly with the candida or oral thrush, which isn't very pleasant, and so this episode has been recorded a little bit later, and that's why I've had more things to talk about. So it's been a little bit longer, but I hope that you've still found some useful things in here. And going forward, now that we have a clearer plan with what to do with Playing with Songs Produced, episode 3 will be to start working on the drum track. So we're going to start working on the drum track for episode 3 of Playing with Songs Produced, which is the song called Stay. So until next week, take very good care of yourself, and I shall see you next time. And I have been Rob Langley-Jones, and this has been episode number 5 of the making of Playing with Songs.